Hi, I'm Megan, and I will be presenting the first half of our American Centuries project over the economy after 1945. In this presentation, we hope to explain the causes of economic growth in the years after World War II and explain the causes and effects of the migration of various groups of Americans after 1945. We will be including AMSCO chapters 7.11, 7.14, and 8.4. And we will be largely going over key concept 8.3, which is post-war economic and demographic changes and consequences. In the years after World War II, the United States economy experienced unprecedented growth. Economic growth in the United States after World War II was driven by several factors, including technological advancements, workforce changes, the rise of American consumerism, and migration changes. In this presentation, we will explore these factors and their impact on economic growth, along with the effects of migration on the economy. Before the war, the United States was still recovering from the impact of the Great Depression, and the unemployment rate was hovering around 25%. President Roosevelt's New Deal economic policies were helping the nation recover from the crisis, and by the end of the 1930s, the Great Depression was weakening. But Americans were still hindered by the poverty that the Great Depression had created. At this point, Americans had not yet officially joined the war efforts, wanting to keep their promise of neutrality. However, President Roosevelt's Lend-Lease Act shifted the U.S. economy into a wartime economy, as it allowed them to begin to support the British with supplies. To the side is a political cartoon depicting the Lend-Lease Act. It shows the U.S., who is depicted by Uncle Sam bravely and significantly supporting the British in their war against Germany, who is depicted by Hitler. Its purpose is to reinforce the U.S.'s support of Britain as a positive thing, as Germany, or Hitler, is depicted as evil and bad. It shows Uncle Sam and the Lend-Lease Act as a good thing. During this time, American companies began producing guns, planes, and other military equipment, tanks, at an unbelievable rate. As a result, there were more jobs available and more Americans went back to work. American factories were modernized to produce goods to support the war effort, and almost overnight, the unemployment rate dropped by about 10%. However, following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, millions of men were called to duty. When these men joined the armed forces, they left behind millions of jobs. Instantly, the nation faced a labor shortage that was soon filled by workers who had previously been denied many employment opportunities. To the right is a political ad. The purpose of the advertisement is to show the importance of work back home and what Americans can do to serve their country without serving overseas. Although millions were called to duty, the spots could be filled to aid the country. The workers quoted saying that they felt their job there is just as important as the one they had to leave. This meant to show that although they cannot serve their country in the military, they can still help war efforts back home in factories or manufacturing centers. This again goes to show the employment opportunities made as a result of the war and how these employment opportunities affected the U.S. and its people. Women also joined the workforce to fill jobs that were traditionally held by men. Women have always worked outside the home, but never before in the numbers or with the same impact as they did in World War II. Although many let go of their jobs once the war ended, women had proven that they could do their job, and within a few decades, women in the workforce became a common sight. Women proved they could do men's work and do it well. To the right is an image of Rosie the Riveter, who was created to represent the women at work in World War II. This poster, produced during World War for the War Production Coordinating Committee, was part of the national campaign in the United States to enlist women in the workforce. Its purpose was to encourage women to join the workforce and aid their country. World War II officially ended in the morning of September 2, 1945, when Japanese representatives signed the surrender document on the USS Missouri. The impact of the war on the economy did not end, however. The boom in industry and in the workforce was significant not only to the war itself, but also to the economy following World War II. Modernized U.S. factories, which had proven to be so impactful to the war effort, changed following the war to meet the needs of consumers who had been encouraged to save up their money in preparation of such a post-war boom. After World War II, consumer spending no longer meant just satisfying an indulgent material desire. In fact, the American consumer was praised and considered a patriotic citizen supporting their country's economy. Americans of this time largely invested in items based on home and family life. Demand dramatically increased for machines that would help the American population modernize their lives, from cars to televisions to refrigerators and toasters. The image is of an American family standing by their suburban home and their new car. Automobile ownership, along with the quest for the American dream life of home ownership, was all part of this economic change towards consumerism. The image is meant to show off the young family's new modern lifestyle following the man's return to war.
Hi, I'm Clay, and I'll be explaining the next part of our topic, which is migration of Americans after 1945. So, after World War II, there was an uprising trend of Americans migrating to changing communities such as suburbs and the Sun Belt. There were different causes for this, and it affected the economy because of the opportunities made and also the shifts in political powers that occurred. After Americans won the war, many of them felt a new sense of confidence and nationalism. They had also recently gotten out of economic depression, which transformed into the confidence many felt of being able to support larger families. This led to the baby boom. This photo shows how happy everyone was and just their confidence and nationalism they all felt after the war. So the first cause of American migration after 1945 was the baby boom. Although families felt this economic confidence coming out of the Depression, many looked for low-priced homes. They found these in newly developing suburbs. Families could not afford housing in central cities, which is why they migrated to the suburbs. Suburbs grew greatly while urban areas declined. And then you can see in the photo all of these kids that are just making these schools super full because people are having so many kids. The next cause of American migration after 1945 was the Interstate Highway Act. This act granted the building of highways across the nation. It increased transportation and made it a lot more efficient. Traveling from suburbs to cities was a lot easier through this. These changes in transportation caused for migration of Americans, especially to suburbs, to be more accessible, and therefore with greater numbers of people. And then you can see in the photo the city in the back, and then the highway goes out to the suburbs, which just connected it a lot more and made migration that much easier. The next cause of American migration after 1945 was the GI Bill. This bill helped veterans by funding things for them like higher education, unemployment insurance, and housing. The thing that mattered most for migration was housing. Money for housing that was given to them led to an increase in immigration to the Sun Belt and or suburbs. Although these benefits were great for white Americans, they did not benefit African Americans. And then in the photo, you can see President Roosevelt signing the bill, which was signed in 1944. Now, on to the effects of American migration. The first effect is the growth of the Sun Belt. So the Sun Belt is all the way from the southeast to the southwest, as you can see in the photo, the red shading. And after World War II, many Americans and GIs moved to the Sun Belt to find warmth, lower taxes, and economic opportunities. Not only did this migration cause a growth in the Sun Belt, but also in the South's economy because of the revenue brought in. Many GIs found work in defense-related jobs there and caused for tax dollars being shifted, leading to a shift in political power, causing the South to have more power than before. The last effect is the suburb construction and growth. With many families moving to suburbs, there was a huge increase in the construction of them across the nation. They needed to keep up with the demand. They grew a ton and have stayed prevalent across America to this day. And in the photo is Levittown. This was in New York and was one of the first low-cost solution suburbs. And now our conclusion. Post-war, America faced many changes, and eventually even challenges. Many of these changes after 1945 dealt with the economy and how it was growing and recovering after the Depression and war. The economy was overall able to grow through technological advancements, consumerism, labor changes, and new migration trends. And here are our sources. Thank you.